Macmillan Audio presents Her Last Breath by Linda Castillo. Read for you by Kathleen McInerney. The cruelest lies are often told in silence. Robert Louis Stevenson, Virginibus Puerisque. Prologue. The clip-clop of the standard-bred shod hooves against asphalt echoed within the canopy of the trees. Paul Borntrager had purchased the 4-year-old gelding at the horse auction in Millersburg 6 months ago, against his better judgment. His daughter, Nora, promptly named the animal Samson, after the world's largest horse, because he was so big and strong. Fresh off the racetrack, Samson had been a challenge at first, breaking his gait and spooking at cars and loose dogs. But after 6 months of training and a lot of miles, the horse turned out to be a good investment. Now Samson was one of the fastest trotters he'd ever owned, and a pleasure to drive. Paul was glad he'd taken a chance on the animal. The leather reins were solid but soft in his hands. The jingle of the harness and the rhythmic creaking of the buggy lulled Paul into a state of quiet contemplation. The children had behaved well this afternoon, even though they had to wait more than an hour for their appointment at the clinic. They were silent now, but only because he'd stopped at the Dairy Dream and bought them ice cream cones. The instant they finished, he was certain the chatter and games would return. The thought made him smile. It had been a good day. Dusk was fast approaching, and the low clouds were spitting drizzle. He hoped it rained. The drought had been tough on the crops over the summer. Clucking, giving the reins a sharp snap, he pushed Samson into an extended trot. Though he'd added battery-powered taillights and affixed a reflective, slow-moving vehicle sign to the rear of the buggy, Paul didn't like being on the road after dark. The Englishers were always in a hurry and drove too fast. Half of the time they didn't pay attention where they were going, especially with all the cell phones and texting they did.
"Look, Dad, this soon is am onerge."
Smiling at the voice of his 4-year-old son, Paul glanced to his right. Through the blood-red foliage of the maples, elms, and black walnut trees that grew alongside the road, glowing pink fingers of the setting sun speared through deepening clouds. "The Lord blessed us with another day, eh?"
"Dad, David won't batch with me,"
came 6-year-old Nora's voice from the rear of the buggy. Botching was a clapping game their mam had been teaching young Nora for the last few days. The girl had been pestering her older brother to play with her since. "I think he must be busy eating his ice cream," Paul offered.
"But he's finished."
David, his oldest child at 8 years of age, poked his head out from the interior of the buggy and looked up at him.
"Botching is for girls, Dad. Don't make me play with her."
Paul glanced over his shoulder at his daughter.
"He has a point, Nora."
She came up beside her brother and set her hand on his shoulder. Paul saw a sticky-looking patch of melted chocolate ice cream on her knuckles.
"I won't tell anyone,"
she said, with grave seriousness. That made Paul laugh. Love for his children moved through him with such power, his chest ached. Not for the first time that day, he thanked God for all of the blessings bestowed upon him.
"We're almost home," he said. "Why don't you sing one of the botching songs instead?"
He posed the question absently. They were coming upon a blind intersection. He liked to be ready in case Samson spooked. Tightening his grip on the reins, Paul craned his head forward to check for oncoming traffic. The trees were too thick to see, but there was no telltale glow of headlights. He didn't hear an engine or the hiss of tires against the pavement.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?